At 38,000 feet, 200 lives hung by a thread. The jet was dying, the radios were dead, and panic filled the cabin. But the captain carried a secret one she had buried for years. When all hope was gone, she called on it. Nay, the world had forgotten, and the sky answered back. The night sky stretched endless above the Atlantic. Stars shimmered faintly, scattered like forgotten coins. A silver aircraft cut through the dark, engines humming, its body steady at 38,000 feet. Inside the cabin, life unfolded in its usual fragments. A boy pressed his face to the window, whispering questions to his father about the constellations. A tired nurse leaned back with her eyes closed, her hands still faintly smelling of antiseptic from her last shift. Two students whispered about their future in a new country. For most of the passengers, this was just another flight routine, uneventful, destined to fade into memory, but not for Captain Mia Watson. She sat upright in the cockpit, uniform neat, eyes sharp. At 40, she carried herself with the calm strength of someone who had lived through storms others could only imagine. Once, years ago, she had flown combat helicopters over hostile valleys, where every shadow hid a weapon. She had carried wounded soldiers out of fire zones, piloting low and fast with tracer rounds chasing her tail. Those years had carved instincts deep into her, and now, even in a peaceful commercial jet, those instincts never truly slept. Her co-pilot, Daniel Brooks, younger and fresh into long-haul flying, stretched lazily in his seat. "You're tense tonight, Captain," he said lightly. "Everything's green. Clear skies ahead. Sometimes a flight is just a flight." Mia's lips curved faintly. "And sometimes it isn't," she answered. She didn't explain further. Experience had taught her that the moment you believed nothing could go wrong, fate reminded you otherwise. The cockpit lights glowed softly, instruments aligned, fuel steady. Yet, beneath it all, she felt a whisper of unease. It wasn't fear, it was awareness. The kind that rose like a shadow when something unseen stirred in the dark, and soon her instincts would prove right. The first sign was small, a dull thud, muffled, like luggage shifting in the hold. Then, the alarms blared shrill, relentless, red lights flashing across the panels. Daniel jolted. "What was that?" "Cabin pressure," Mia snapped, already pulling on her oxygen mask. Mask on. Now, within seconds, oxygen masks dropped into the passenger cabin. Panic spread like fire. A mother cried out, struggling to fit the rubber cup over her child's small face. A businessman fumbled, hands shaking. Flight attendants rushed through the aisles, shouting instructions. The jet shuddered violently, pressing passengers into their seats as Mia forced the plane into a controlled descent. The engines roared louder, the cabin lights flickered, and terrified screams filled the air. "Radio's cutting," Daniel shouted, twisting knobs desperately. "We're blind." Mia's mind worked like a machine. Blind was bad. Blind at this altitude, with 200 lives on board, was worse. But she had no space for panic. Her voice stayed steady as she barked commands. They dropped altitude fast. Yet the instruments began flickering, screens going dark one after another. The Boeing felt alive beneath her, groaning like a wounded beast. Every tremor a reminder that it was failing. Daniel's breathing quickened. What if we can't reach anyone? What if a TC doesn't see us? Mia's jaw clenched. She remembered nights in hostile skies when radios were dead and survival meant flying on instinct alone. This felt the same, only worse, because here, she wasn't alone. She carried 200 souls, and somewhere deep in her jacket pocket lay a piece of her past she had sworn never to touch again. A code, a call sign, a thread connecting her to a world she had left behind. But tonight, she might need it. The cockpit trembled with alarms, Daniel's hands shaking over dead radios. Mia steadied the controls, her body taut, eyes narrowed. Manual, navigation, she ordered. Charts and compass. If the digital fails, we don't stop flying. Daniel blinked. That's old school. So am I, she said flatly, as he fumbled with laminated charts. Mia slid her hand into her pocket. Her fingers brushed a rough patch of leather. Inside was an ID card she had carried through battlefields. On it, a single word. Hawk 17, her call sign. Daniel frowned. What's that? Something not in your manuals, Mia murmured. She tapped codes into the emergency transponder numbers burned into her muscle memory. An encrypted signal pulsed silently into the night, invisible to civilian radars, loud only to military ears. Daniel's eyes widened. What did you just do? I called for help, Mia said softly, in a language only a few will understand. Silence stretched. Then, on the radar screen, two fast-moving blips appeared. Military. Closing in, Mia's chest tightened. They had heard. They had answered. Asterisk high above the Atlantic, two fighter jets streaked through the sky. Their cockpits glowed green as radar. Feeds lit up. Control, this is Falcon 1, a voice said firmly. We've received an encrypted distress ping. Code Hawk 17. Authentication confirmed. Diverting to intercept. The command center's reply was immediate. Full authority. Granted. Protect that aircraft. Whatever it takes. Minutes later, the dark silhouettes of the fighters slid alongside the wounded passenger jet. Passengers gasped, some cheering, some panicking. Phones raised to capture the surreal sight. In the cockpit, Mia's headset crackled. Hawk 17, this is Falcon 1. We have you in sight. Her throat tightened. She hadn't been called that in years. But tonight, she was Hawk 17 again. Copy, Falcon 1, she replied steadily. 200 souls on board. Systems failing. Request vector guidance. The answer came calm, unwavering. Roger that, Hawk 17. You're not alone. We're with you. Mia exhaled slowly, relief coursing through her veins. But she knew this was only the beginning, because bringing the jet down alive would demand everything: her skill, her past, and her will to fight. Asterisk, the presence of the two fighter jets steadied the wounded bowing. Their sleek silhouettes gleamed faintly under the stars, one on each side, flying as if tethered to her wings. In the cabin, passengers pressed to the windows. Some whispered prayers of thanks. Others muttered in fear that the jets were there to shoot them down. Hope and panic tangled like threads in a storm. In the cockpit, Mia adjusted her headset. Falcon 1, confirm vector. The reply came calm, professional. Hawk 17, adjust heading, 180. Begin controlled descent to 15,000. Emergency crews alerted at nearest base. Daniel's voice shook as he scanned the instruments. Mia, hydraulics are bleeding fast. Controls, feel sluggish. Mia's hand stayed firm on the yoke. Then we fly her until she listens no more. The jet trembled violently, dropping several hundred feet before she corrected. Passengers screamed behind the cockpit door. Oxygen masks swung like pendulums. In the dim light, Daniel swallowed. What if the systems fail completely? Mia's eyes stayed on the horizon. Then we fly her on instinct. That's impossible. She turned to him, her gaze like steel. So was flying wounded soldiers out of valleys, with half the rotors shot away. So was surviving nights when tracer fire painted the sky red. Impossible is only a word. Daniel stared at her, breath catching. For the first time, he believed. Asterisk, the Atlantic shimmered faintly below, its surface hidden under patches of cloud. The Boeing's engines strained, the sound uneven, like a runner gasping for air, hydraulic pressure dropping further. Daniel muttered, his fingers trembling. Mia checked quickly. The gauges confirmed his fear. Nose gear deployment was uncertain. Landing this bird would be no ordinary descent. It would be a gamble. The radio crackled again. Hawk 17, this is Falcon 1. Alternate field, identified. Emergency crews, standing by. Do you copy? Copy, Mia replied, her voice firm. Vector guidance, acknowledged. She steadied the yoke, sweat dripping down her temple. Her body remembered battles she hadn't wanted to relive. But tonight, she was not just Captain Mia Watson. Tonight, she was Hawk 17 again. In the cabin, fear spread like smoke. A man shouted that the jets were escorting them to their deaths. A mother sobbed quietly, rocking her child. A teenage boy whispered, "They're protecting us," his voice cracking with awe. One flight attendant braced herself, shouting, "Stay calm. The captain has control." Her voice trembled, but it carried enough strength to hold panic at bay for a while. Daniel leaned closer, whispering, "Why didn't you ever tell anyone that you were a soldier?" Mia finished for him. "Because it was a different life, and I thought it was over." His eyes flicked to the jets outside. "Looks like it's not." Mia didn't answer. She didn't need to. The presence of the Raptors said it all. Asterisk, the runway lights of a military base shimmered faintly ahead, a ribbon of salvation carved into the dark. Fire trucks lined the strip, red strobes flashing, crews braced for the worst. Hawk 17. "Confirm landing gear status," Falcon 1's voice requested. Mia glanced at Daniel. He pulled the lever. Metal groaned deep within the aircraft. Lights flickered uncertainly. "Main gear down," Daniel said. His voice cracked. "Nose gear status unknown." Mia pressed the mic. "Falcon 1, nose gear uncertain. Prepare for possible belly landing." A beat of silence. Then, "Copy. Hawk 17. Emergency crews are ready. You're clear for priority landing. We stay with you." Daniel's knuckles whitened on the throttles. "If the nose collapses, then we ride it until it stops," Mia cut in. Her voice was calm, steady, unshakable. At 3,000 feet, turbulence slammed them, the jet dipping sharply. Passengers screamed. Coffee cups and masks swung wildly.